EFD squad, with the transfer window quickly approaching, today we are looking at the top 10 worst panic buys of the January window. 10. Andy Carroll. The January transfer window has seen some sensational signings, with the likes of Evra and Mascherano heading to the Premier League in time for the new year. But more often than not, it's a month of panic shopping and failed attempts to cover injuries and unexpected exits. The January of 2011 was no different. Fernando Torres, who'd scored 65 league goals in 3.5 seasons in Merseyside, was heading to London. The Spaniard had broken the then British transfer record fee of £50 million going to Chelsea, and newly appointed Kenny Dalglish replaced him with none other than Andy Carroll. The Newcastle striker arrived at Anfield for a club record £35 million to partner Liverpool's other new signing, Luis Suarez. But while Suarez's stock soared, Carroll's plummeted. The 22-year-old scored just 6 goals in 26 league games. That's a cost of almost £6 million per goal. Unsurprisingly, 18 months later, Carroll was sent off to West Ham, where he's been ever since. But the lofty striker has failed to reach double figures for goals in the English top flight ever since. 9. Roman Pavlyuchenko. The first, but not the last, Spartak Moscow graduate to make an appearance in this top 10. Roman Pavlyuchenko's move to Tottenham in 2008 may not have been pushed through at the very last minute, but it was definitely a panic purchase, as Spurs coach Juande Ramos was desperately looking to fill gaps left by Robbie Keane and the outgoing Dimitar Berbatov. For almost £14 million, the Russian striker was the side's big money signing of the window. And much like his compatriots on this list, he didn't quite justify the hefty price tag. To make matters worse, Ramos admitted Eto'o and David Villa were on the top of his wish list instead. Pavlyuchenko made 45 league appearances, 33 of those were from the bench, and when Harry Redknapp took over at White Hart Lane, the forward became 4th in the pecking order. He eventually left London with 20 Premier League goals to his name over 4 seasons and headed back to Moscow, but this time for FC Lokomotiv. 8. Paolo Pezzini. The 25-time capped Italian Paolo Pezzini impressed at Fiorentina in 2005 when he scored 10 goals in just 4 appearances. But following the development of Luca Toni, he left for Sampdoria in 2008 in search for more time in the first team. And the move proved beneficial as his stock started to climb and his goal every other game average took Sampdoria to the top of Serie A for the first time since 1991. The striker's first brace came in a shock 3-0 win in the Coppa Italia against none other than Inter Milan. Obviously impressed with the performance, the Italian champions signed Il Pazzo on a 4.5-year deal in January 2011. Despite scoring 2 on his debut, Pezzini struggled to replicate his Sampdorian form, and yet again he found himself out of favour and on the bench. Transfer listed the very next season, the deal from January proved to be a very unsuccessful panic purchase. 7. Benjani. The curious case of Benjani's move from Portsmouth to Man City makes it to 7th on this list. On deadline day back in 2008, Manchester City were middle of the table and looking to strengthen their squad. Desperate for an extra set of legs up front, Sven-Goran Eriksson surprised the Sky Blues when he turned his attention to Portsmouth striker Benjani, who had netted just once in 18 appearances. However, the signing wasn't simple. The Zimbabwe international reportedly fell asleep on his way to Manchester, missed 2 flights and didn't get to the training ground until 11 p.m. By that time, City had got cold feet and they tried to back out of the deal. They even announced it had fallen through, but 4 days later the Premier League confirmed that the move had actually gone ahead. Not exactly the best start to his time in the Northwest. Although the striker scored on his debut for the club in a 2-1 win against rivals Manchester United, he suffered an injury, seeing more minutes in the doctors than on the pitch. Over 2 years, he played just a further 22 games and scored a total of only 4 goals before running down his contract at City and heading to Blackburn Rovers. 6. Kim Kallstrom. The Arsenal medical room is a notoriously busy one, with players like Theo Walcott and Santi Cazorla owning residencies on the physio tables. And in 2014 it wasn't much different. Aaron Ramsey had been a key figure in the Gunners' midfield, and when he suffered a recurring thigh injury, Arsene Wenger went into panic mode. On the 31st of January 2014, the Frenchman signed Swedish midfielder Kim Kallstrom on loan from Spartak Moscow. The Moscow veteran was supposed to provide cover for the injured Ramsey as well as Jack Wilshere, but it turned out that Kallstrom had damaged his vertebrae that would have him renting a sick bay alongside them at London Colney for 6 weeks. The 31-year-old spent just one season in North London. He totted up an embarrassing total of 1 league start, 2 appearances from the bench and 128 minutes of Premier League football. Not exactly Wenger's proudest bit of business. 5. Lukas Podolski. From one Arsenal flop to the other, Lukas Podolski spent 3 years at the Emirates and scored 19 Premier League goals for the Gunners. But in January 2015, the German international left for Inter Milan for the rest of the season. And after failing to find the back of the net in his first 8 appearances for Mancini's Inter, Podolski was voted the second worst Serie A transfer of the season. Inter fans and Inter boss alike were underwhelmed with the striker's output at the San Siro. Mancini placed Shaqiri ahead of the World Cup winner in the pecking order, and one Italian paper claimed that playing Podolski was worse than playing with 10 men. With 1 goal and 1 assist in 830 minutes of football, it's needless to say Podolski was shown the door at the San Siro and took off for Galatasaray, where he would go on to win the Turkish top division. 4. Klaas-Jan Huntelaar. Klaas-Jan Huntelaar turned heads during his time in Ajax's red and white. After scoring 76 goals in 92 Eredivisie games, Real Madrid forked out an emergency €27 million to bring the striker to the Bernabeu and replace the injured Ruud van Nistelrooy. And when Real Madrid failed to pick him for their Champions League squad, Huntelaar wasn't eligible for the competition, making him pretty useless. He made 20 league appearances, the majority as a sub, and scored 8 goals, which doesn't seem like a terrible turnaround. And though he was meant to be tied to the club till 2013, he was sent packing just 6 months after he'd arrived. Huntelaar's exit out of Madrid and over to Milan was really collateral damage, as Cristiano Ronaldo, Kaká and Benzema all passed him leaving on their way into the Bernabeu. 3. Amare. The Brazilian-born Italian international has proven to be one of the many disappointing Fiorentina signings. And they don't really have much of an excuse for this one. Amare had a woeful time at Italian giants Juventus after a long drawn-out transfer saga left him out of favour and not even on their bench. In 71 games, the striker had scored just 17 times in all competitions, and he was sold for a measly $500,000 to the struggling Tuscan club. Even though this was a huge $22 million less than he'd arrived for, the signing proved to be anything but a bargain for Fiorentina. In 17 appearances, the Italian managed to hit the target just once. His lonely goal came in the shock comeback win against league leaders AC Milan to help out his old side. His strike indirectly sent Juventus to the top of Serie A for the first time since the Calciopoli scandal. Ironic that his most influential goal for Juve came while playing for Fiorentina. 2. Nicolas Anelka. There's no doubt that Nicolas Anelka has achieved at the highest level. He has won the Champions League with Real Madrid, the Premier League with both Chelsea and Arsenal, as well as earning a Euros winners' medal on the international stage in 2000. However, silverware doesn't mean you can't be a dud signing, and it's his January move to Juventus that places him on this list. In 2013, the former Chelsea forward, who'd been playing in Shanghai, joined the Bianconeri on a 6-month loan deal. But the striker, who'd notched up 125 Premier League goals, couldn't claw his way into Antonio Conte's Serie A winning side, appearing just 3 times in all competitions, with a goal total of 0. He may have failed to make an impression in the squad, but Juventus went on to win the Scudetto for the 2nd year in a row, proving that they didn't need their January signing anyway. Anelka is probably still sulking. 1. Dante. The final player to have his picture hung up in this January Hall of Shame is a surprising one. Dante, who became a salient member of Bayern Munich's Bundesliga and Champions League winning side, was somewhat of a transfer flop back in 2004, when he joined Ligue 1 side Lille. The Brazilian centre-back managed just 12 appearances in 2.5 seasons, playing just 820 minutes. The Great Danes coach Claude Puel deemed him surplus to requirements, and Dante moved to Belgian side Sporting Charleroi. But 7 years later, Dante achieved a collection of the highest club level accolades. Not bad for a Ligue 1 reject. Maybe this could have been one of the best January signings if the clumsy defender had been given more time in Lille's red jersey. Thank you for watching. That was top 10 January panic buys. If I missed any out, let me know in the comments below. And if you like that, then make sure to keep your eyes peeled for some of our festive content. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe.